What is going on, guys? And today we are back and we're mixing it up with our good friend, Mr. Eric Baldwin, aka Basebaldy. He almost needs no introduction. And the reason I say almost is, Eric, I looked on the Hendon Mob, and you are right now, you're just outside of the top 250 on the popularity ranking. So if
Is
you're
that right?
if you're in the top 250, I'd say you need no introduction. But since you are outside the top 250, I'd say you do need an introduction. So I wanted to throw it your way. But
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm so excited to have you, man. Thanks for doing this. And obviously, I'm going to go over some of your numbers here in a minute, and to me, they're quite staggering. But you have put in a lot of time at the World Series, so I'm super excited to jump in and kind of talk to you on some of these topics. Um, Anything else you want to open with?
No, not at all. Thanks for the introduction. Very kind, and I'm also looking forward to the conversation.
All right, awesome. Well, let me go over some of your numbers real quick, just to um, help the ego a little bit. You have over 9.3 in tournament winnings. You were 2009 Card Player of the Year. You have 2 WSOP bracelets. You have 147 WSOP caches. How is that possible? That's insane.
I
I didn't
haven't
even know
missed
you
a
could.
year.
I didn't. That was a good year. Was that what you're saying?
No, no, no. I just haven't missed a year. I got hooked on them at a young age, and I've just been grinding them ever since.
That is incredible. I, yeah, that's just so many. You have 82 circuit caches, which is stunning in its own right, too. You have 15 WPT caches, which again, that's I didn't even know. And Card Player has you a total of 661 total caches.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's getting strange, Kyle. I tell you, I don't know. It just nothing feels different, but like all of a sudden there's all these younger faces in the game, and they're like closer to my kids' age than they are to mine, and I've got all these caches, and they're looking at me like some kind of OG. So yeah, it's getting a little strange, but still loving it.
Well, I mean, usually when you're wearing a hat and the gray's not showing, I mean, you still have a pretty young face. So, it's funny when I was going through your stats again, I think I mentioned this to you like a month ago when I found out you were like 2009 Player of the Year. I'm like, you've been around that long? Like, I didn't even know it. So that was
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I've
a
heard you
funny
say
one to
forever,
hit
but
the young guys with for sure.
yeah, so I didn't even know it. But now, and this is where we'll go into a couple different things, but I can only find of like all your WSOP caches for the most part, just kind of like glancing through, I can only find some very, very small random like O8 or PL08 caches for the most part. It's almost all no limit, a couple, maybe one or two, three PLOs, something like that in there. But you are just been a no limit grinder for forever. Also, you are currently in the top 200 on the all-time money list. Now, I'm sure the next time Triton tournament makes it down the last two tables, you'll be out of there. But
Yeah.
as of right now, you're still up there. So, yeah, like your bio is pretty impressive, especially with the volume that you've put in over these years. So, congrats to you on that, and yeah, it's awesome.
No, thank you very much. It's flattering and happy to have been able to have enough success to be doing it for this long now.
Yeah, and I always say like if you're ready to give it up, you could always start reading romance novels because a lot of people, don't hear you talk before them, but obviously now with the stream, you can hear that nice deep voice. So I'm sure you're ready to go. But yeah, the one thing I want to jump into first off is obviously I've kind of like met you through playing on Phenom and in the mixed games in general. And one thing that's interested me is because if you look through your whole history basically of playing online tournament or just tournament poker in general, it's almost all no limit. So what attracted you now to mixed games? Like that's one thing that I really want to interest is you coming from a no limit background.
Well, I always did have an interest in them. So I'll go back a little ways. I got into poker in high school. My buddies and we would play multiple times a week, just loved it. And then when I went off to college, I discovered online poker. And one of the first games I gravitated to in online poker was Omaha 8 or better. So I actually got a fair number of hands in of Omaha 8 or better cash when I was like 21 years old. So something about the game just appealed to me, and I would love nothing better. I'd sit next to a case of beer and and play Omaha 8 or better online while my buddies played Madden in the dorm room. And so I always there was always games other than No Limit Hold'em that I enjoyed. But then I kind of got into sit and goes, and from there I got into MTTs, and I kind of got that bug. Um, so I always kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to learn all the games and get into the mixed games because I started coming to the World Series, and you see these other events and all these legends, making final tables and all these different events, and it seemed just super cool and interesting. So I always kind of planned on diving into mixed games at some point. And my plan was to get a lot of hands in online. Well, never got around to it. There's always another good No Limit Hold'em tournament coming. And so I always just kind of
Yeah.
like never made the time to do it. And then Black Friday hit, and then the option to play mixed games online was no longer there. So then it really kind of went on the back burner. But it was always something I had on my list that I wanted to do at some point. And then with the launch of Phenom Poker, it seemed like just a perfect opportunity to dive in, and I committed to doing it. And certainly don't claim to be an expert by any means, as you know, but I've really enjoyed the process of discovering all these new games.
Yeah, and you have a Twitch channel. Is it called, was it Basebaldy Poker? So you
Yes, sir.
stream your play out there. So anyone who's looking to kind of check out what he does and his intro, and again listening to that voice about possible romantic novel side gig in the future, um, that's also up there as well. And one thing I've noticed with myself playing, I'd say like a lot of mixed games, and I used to play a fair bit of No Limit, but I never really had a good, let's say, like good foundational understanding of why we make decisions in like No Limit. And then going to the mixed games, oops, knocked my water over there. Um, you coming from now a No Limit background to the mixed games, how has that helped you understand like some of the concepts, excuse me, in some of the mixed games, like in some of the decisions you make? Because I hear sometimes you talk about like I make this decision because like maybe this is like part of my range. Like when you're playing a new game that you might not understand, how do you take that like no limit background and then use it in some of your decisions when you're playing mix?
Oh boy. Yeah, it's a real leap when it comes to certain games, because there's not a whole lot of direct similarities between, like No Limit Hold'em and say Badesi. But like at the core of all of these games, there's still poker, right? Like
Mhm.
uh you have equity, and you try to realize that equity, and you try to maximize your wins and minimize your losses, right? So um, to me, each different game has kind of like a dial turned up or down on which poker fundamental is more or less important for that game. So for me, it's like this amazing like cross training type situation where each game you get into, you're tinkering with those dials, you're seeing what's important, what's not. And yeah, just jumping from one game to the next, playing with those dials. And then when you come back, it's just like uh you just feel like you leveled up in different fundamentals of poker.
Yeah, and obviously now like you're trying to dig in and learn a lot of these games. Like have you taken like a beginning mindset to a lot of them and just trying to like incrementally, just get better and kind of like understand the fundamentals? Because obviously you're coming from a very high level of playing No Limit Hold'em, and now you have to jump back down into games where you're just like,
Yeah.
like, are these wild cards? I don't know like what works here, but uh, you know,
It,
now you're playing games where you really don't know the rules, and I'm sure being very high level in one game, specifically, obviously No Limit, and then going to the mixed games and kind of like, having to learn basic like rules of the game almost a few months ago, I'm sure.
Mhm.
How has that struggle been for you in like some ways?
Well, I think it's a healthy challenge, like that struggle is good stuff. It's like if you get on a workout regimen, like there's pain up front before the gains come. So just throwing yourself into that struggle, and then, sitting with it and learning bit by bit, and having and learning and progressing is part of it. I I've learned to enjoy that instead of like when I encounter the struggle like that, kind of shy away from it and go back to my old habits and routines. So now I kind of like seek that stuff out. So anytime I start feeling like fear or apprehension around a game or a spot or a concept or something, if I can catch myself, that's like alarm bells to me, like, well, hey, there's room for improvement here. So getting back to your question, yeah, it's been quite the experience. Um, and my approach has been one of making sure I get some hands in, like giving myself permission to make mistakes, because that's a big part of it, because like especially in no limit hold'em culture right now, um, every spot is solved or could be solved, and there's like this poker group think that makes it very easy to be very self-critical, and feel like you should know the answer in absolutely every spot. So when you go to mix, you gotta give yourself some grace. And so I've tried to do that and just play some hands at lower limits. It's fine. Um, and just through the process of playing hands, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, keeping your ears open, keeping your eyes on the chat, like looking at the hand histories when you're done playing hands. That's all just information, and it's all just soaking in. And every time you finish a session, you might feel your brain might feel just zapped. Um, but something happens throughout that process that, after a good night's sleep, you come back and you play the same game the next day, you level up a little bit. And so I know that'll only take you so far. Like there's technical study that is a big part of the equation. But just playing and struggling and staying open and curious and asking yourself questions and keeping your ears open is a big part of the process for me. I know everyone's got different learning styles, but I think the most important thing, whether you go a strictly book route or a strictly training video route or a strictly play route, or maybe learning from a friend, whatever it is, feel out what type of learning style works for you, and then commit to it and put yourself in that situation. Sit with the discomfort, feel it out, take small actionable steps um that just get you further into it, and good things are going to happen, I believe.
So two things. The first one is I thought that answer, the whole, you know, answer you just gave, very well thought out, and it comes from a person who's like, you know, been grinding and like trying to learn a lot of these games, like the process that you've gone through. And the second thing too is like you said something that I think is actually quite profound, that I think a lot of us want to do, but we don't, is give yourself permission to make mistakes. And I mean that's something hard because, I I am, when I make a mistake, I still to this day, even after all these years of playing mixed games, I'm pretty harsh on myself. Um and yeah, I think you're just you're much more content, you're calmer if you know, like, it's okay to make the mistake. And a lot of spots, you know, can haunt you for a long time, I'm sure, but if you give yourself that grace, then I think for sure it's something that'll just make you a better learner and a better player. So
Yeah, for sure. The power of the poker group think is can't be overstated, because like poker's such a tough game. You're going to take so many losses and deal with failure so much that like going up against, what the common group think is, or like hearing it and not caring and doing your own thing anyway, that's a tough challenge. But the somewhat related to the point I was making earlier, wherever those tough challenges are, those are the areas where the biggest opportunities are, because it's kind of the old, if it was easy, everyone would be
Yep.
doing it.
Yep.
So that's another thing to look out for, is those hard areas. Try and stay open and curious for if you can develop an edge or a delta over your competition when it comes to dealing with those things.
Yeah. I think that's really well said. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to do the work and dig in and find the hard spots and really do the work, like you say, uh, your edge is just so much higher. It just gets so much bigger, and it's not fun for sure. I mean, it's not fun to a lot of times stare at charts or have tough conversations about mistakes that you made with friends. Because a lot of times too, that's another thing too, is like when you're talking about hand histories with friends. I always kind of like jokingly say that because I'm not interviewing Chris today, but whenever I've told Chris I think 5 different times, and Chris has told me 5 different times, like, well, Kyle, let me see about that hand. Yeah, that's by far the worst hand I've ever heard of in my life, kind of thing. And when your best friend's telling you basically like this, it's like, okay, should I tell him another one in the future or not? But it can be hard.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we're all insecure to a certain extent, and that's one of the toughest things, because when you hit send on a text that's like a hand history to a buddy, you don't know what's going to come back, and you're already feeling like insecure and wounded about the spot. So like, yeah, it's a leap.
But you just gave 25,000 in equity out of the tournament right there by making that play.
Yeah,
Or something
yeah,
crazy.
you really torched it, buddy. No, it's something we all deal with. So again, if you're willing to dive in and deal with whatever comes back, and have some faith in your own resilience, and that you're going to progress from the situation, it's worth it.
Yeah, again, I'll leave it there. I think that's quite well said.
Thank you.
But obviously, one of the things we're going to talk about a lot on this interview and podcast in general is the World Series. So obviously, you're in Nevada, and I'm just curious. Nowadays when the World Series comes, the tournaments leading up before the World Series, the tournaments after the series. I mean, it's over 2 months long nowadays. And someone who's been a no limit grinder basically forever now at this point, you have 2 months of fantastic tournaments to kind of like go play and pick out and love life if you can, as long as you're doing well over that 2 months. Because if you're not doing well over that 2 months, I'm sure it's brutal.
Yep.
But what does your daily routine look like during the during those 2 months?
Oh man, it quickly becomes. It's kind of like everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Uh, you can say, I'm gonna stick to this routine. I'm gonna prioritize taking care of myself. Blah blah blah. And then when the series hits, you're sure to get surprised with like 3 straight 13-hour days, ending with like a final table bubble, and like feeling like you need to late reg the tournament that started that night, playing late again, busting that. It the reality of the series hits you quickly in one way or another. And like you said, the series could be just amazing, or it could be really tough. And more often than not, it's going to be really tough, because just the nature of the prize pools and where the money is. You really need to make a final table in order for it to be a significantly profitable summer.
Yeah.
And making final tables simply isn't easy, especially in the summer when the fields are the biggest they are year round.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
But I didn't really get to your question. So you were asking about routine. So uh I feel like doing preparation beforehand is key. Um, one thing you want to be careful of is creating this giant list of things that you want to get done. So you're just like playing your A+ game all summer long. Life doesn't work that way. You're not going to be able to get that entire list done. It just never happens. And then as the series approaches, you start to feel some anxiety, some excitement. And it's real easy to start being like, oh man, I'm underprepared, and start feeling like super scrambled, and end up in not a good headspace for the series. So I do think there's a lot of value in preparation heading into the series. Once the series itself starts, there's not a whole lot of time for stuff. So I think giving yourself permission to pull back on some of those things, whether it's like going to the gym less or doing some of your other leisure activities that you enjoy, the time for those is just going to be less if you're planning on maximizing your time in these high value tournaments. So I think there's value in just knowing that things are going to change for 7 or 8 weeks, and you're going to beat yourself up a little bit, and then you're going to need a recovery period, and it's going to be grueling at times. But then when it gets to the actual series, um, you try and take care of yourself as much as you can. Listen to your body. Um, we've all registered tournaments that after the fact we bust, we played terrible, and we realized we had no business playing that tournament. That's probably the toughest thing about the summer, is like listening to yourself enough to sit out a good tournament if you need to,
Yeah.
like it's a long summer, and I'm personally not good at this. Like I in the past, at least, hopefully I'm a little better at it this year. Um, but in the past, like if registration's open for something, I do what I need to get myself up for it. Uh, you know, give it all I got, and then pick up the pieces when it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. I I feel like that's something that I would imagine for a lot of no limit grinders during the series, because obviously you have a lot of mixed game tournaments going on during the series, but they all kind of start in the same realm, same time for the most part. A lot of no limit players I feel like have a choice between like different locations, daily options, obviously different buy-ins, different times, you know. If you're if you're like someone who wants to buy in for like $200 or $300 tournaments, a lot of these things start at like 7 o'clock at night. And you can put in a fair bit of volume if you're trying to play like a 11 a.m. World Series event or 12 p.m. World Series event, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go play the nightly at 7 o'clock till 5 in the morning or whatever it is now. I also wanted to ask you with respect to I asked Chris about this last time I interviewed him, and he said that, like now as he's gotten a little bit older, he doesn't really care about registering on time as much anymore. Do you, with respect to the fields that you play for the most part? Because I forget who I was talking to recently. It was I forget who it was, but my argument yeah, it was another professional in Arizona. And my argument was is like some of these tournaments, when you start, I want to be there in level one because there's a chance that a lot of players who are going to sit are going to make catastrophic mistakes with their stack. And obviously as half the day goes on, in limit tournaments it doesn't really matter that much, right? Like, a couple people might bust here and there, but for the most part, 95 to something percent of the tournament after 4 hours is still going to be in these no limit tournaments, you're going to see a fair bit, or even like the pot limit Omaha, or like for me, like the PLO8s, the Big O, stuff like that. You're going to see massive, massive, massive mistakes in level one. So I'm curious, do you still late reg a lot, or do you try to be there like on time?
I try to be in there on time, and I think there's a large advantage to be gained from being there on time. With that said, I've gotten worse at it over the years, and I think that's just natural because that's the only extra time you can really find in a day. You can't take off the last 2 hours of the day. Like, you're not going to leave
Yeah.
the tournament to take those 2 hours. So, like, if you just get behind in your personal life and you just have things you need to get taken care of, there's really only one place to take it from.
Yeah.
So, but I do think there's like this compounding value of being there early, because not only is someone likely to punt their stack and get in way too many big blinds in a spot that they shouldn't, but you're also developing reads on your players, and those reads, uh, like if you see one or two extra hands that a player played in level 1 or level 2, that's just going to paint a much more accurate picture of that player, and you're going to perform better against that player when the blinds are higher. So you're collecting information. You're hopefully going to be able to build a stack, and like there's a lot of value in having the covering stack in big bet games as the tournament progresses. So I do think there's like multiple reasons why registering on time, if you can, is a huge advantage. And that's one of those things, like as poker players, we're trying to find edges. Well, all the edges aren't in just like knowing exactly what combo to check raise on the turn at what frequency. Like there's edges all over the place. Like one edge would be registering on time. Like that's something that anyone can do. And so like don't overlook the ways you can generate value that might not be as sexy as some of this other stuff. Just like having the discipline to get yourself there on time and commit to it and do it, is adding value to your earn. And yeah, it stinks when you show up on time and the day doesn't go well, but you know what? That value is there. Um, and there's other little things you can do to add value to your summer grind as well. Like one thing that I swear by is um, getting a room somewhere close to where the World Series is. Whether even if you like live in Vegas, obviously if you're coming from out of town, you're going to get a room. I think there's value in being somewhere close to the World Series, just time wise.
Hmm.
But even if you're like a Vegas local, just having a place to go chill on breaks that's away from the smoke, away from the herds of people, away from, walking past people and having all those conversations throughout the day, it's nice to have a place that you can go to just really turn off, and relax and kick your feet up. I think there's a lot of value in that. And certainly, as World Series players, we get decent deals, on rooms, and I think it's worth it. Don't bring a lot of cash or valuables. Do everything electronically. There's been horror stories with that when it comes like back to the Rio days. So be smart about it. But yeah, if you never sleep there a night, it's still nice to have a place. You can make a run to Costco, load up the
I'm really good at
room
that.
with yeah, load up the room with snacks and waters and stuff, have a place to like be able to go back and refresh, grab a shower. You might bust the 11 a.m. event and want to hop in the 3 p.m. event, but you're just not ready yet. You can go up to the room, put on some music, take a shower, grab some snacks, and feel fresh going into the next one, instead of like going and spending $20 at Starbucks. It's crowded, you're tilted from the line at Starbucks. Um, it's little things like that can really put you in a better space, and I feel like there's a lot of edge in stuff like that as well.
Yeah, actually, you're the third straight person on this podcast who has recommended getting a room like in the hotel or really close to it on the strip. And I have always done the get the house off the strip. Something I haven't really talked about too much is like for me the mental drive away to the strip to kind of get like into the zone, and then once I'm there, I have plenty of friends who have hotel rooms, so like I could go somewhere else after. But the drive away from the drive away from whenever while I was there for the Rio. So obviously I haven't been back since it moved away. But that drive away every single night really cleared my head. Just kind of like give me time to like just pause and relax. And I actually though like what you were saying with respect to if you can get like three or four guys to just like maybe pitch in for something like that to have your snacks and something like upstairs where you can go shower and relax and chill out. I think that's a very good piece of advice. I haven't even that is not even registered with me before, but thinking about that, like whatever it could be, like if you're staying there and paying 25 or 30 bucks with other guys on a daily basis for basically your own private place to chill out, especially if you're playing multi tournament or multi turn, sorry, multiple number of tournaments over the course of like several days, then yeah, that there's a lot of sense in that.
It's worth it, and it's less expensive than you would think, especially if like someone in your group's got diamond status.
Yeah.
And if you're playing a lot at the series, someone probably does have that status.
Yeah. Very, very fair. Going back to one thing that you were also saying, like uh frequencies and hero calls and stuff like that. When I interviewed Tom on episode 1, he talked about a lot of tells. When I talked to Chris in episode 2, he talked about GTO. And I'm going to refine this question just a little bit because I think um this is a little bit of a better question. But if you're going to make a big hero call nowadays, like because you were saying like you get there early to get like early reads on your opponents, like kind of seeing like what they're doing for the most part. What information do you use the most now to make those type of decisions?
So you're talking about like the big spots,
Yeah, like
like
the
hero call type spots. So that's been changing for me. Like a lot of the stuff you're hearing me say, I've is stuff that I've like learned in the past year or two since I started working with Jason Su. I know like mental game and performance coaching has become a bigger and bigger part of poker throughout the years as people are just looking for everywhere to get an edge. Something about Jason, kind of rang true to me, and I'm glad I signed up for his program and his work, and I did a little bit more of a more extensive group with him a few months ago. And I couldn't recommend him enough. His website's pokerwithpresence.com. You can go there and get on his email list. He sends out a new email every day. He's obviously on socials. I think it's Jason B. Sue. But check him out. See if he feels right to you. To me, I mean, I haven't checked out everyone's work, but I couldn't imagine anyone being better than him. And it's lasting stuff too. It's not like stuff that you forget. It's lasting stuff that translates over into other areas of your life as well. So back to your question. Shout out Jason Sue. But so back to your question of how I handle like the big hero call spots. Um, it's really so spots like that, it's super easy to get into your head, right? Like you have this instant gut feeling about the spot, and then you get into your head about it, and you start thinking about this thing that happened, that thing that happened. There's time pressure, everyone's watching you. You start thinking about how big the spot is, all of that stuff. I feel like it's important to stay present through those moments and realize what's going on inside you. A lot of times your head is just trying to like make sense of everything that's going on. And a lot of times our head gets in the way of our gut. And I feel like every poker player knows uh that their gut reaction tends to be right. So for me, it's using various methods to make sure I'm staying like connected to my gut. And
big
and
probiotic.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm gonna be chugging kombucha all summer long.
You
Uh
could put that in your room upstairs, you know.
yeah, for sure. But for me, it's more so than a super technical thing. Like, obviously, I'm going to have thoughts about the spot and like what his range should look like. If I feel like he's an over or under bluffer, if I feel like he's going to have a lot of bluffs to pick from, or if I feel like he's never going to get to this line with with any bluffs.
Mm.
Um, but we all get in those spots where we're just not sure, and being able to operate at a high level and a level where you feel like yourself and you feel like you're connected to your gut in those spots is more valuable than anything, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I for sure. Like, you do a lot of training, you do a lot of playing. I mean, there's a lot to be said about like your gut reaction. I really do believe that a lot. Um, all right, changing it just a
I
little.
picked up
Go ahead.
I picked up a lot from Tom. Listening to him talk about tells was interesting for me. I picked up a couple of things, and it was fun to see someone like him speak passionately on the subject because I mean, I love live poker. There's just like so much information and like, yeah, his range can be perfectly balanced, but the fact of the matter is this is poker. You're a human sitting across the table from another human. He's either got it or he doesn't. Like the answer is there somewhere. So it's just like it's part of what makes the game
Sure.
beautiful.
And I actually think one thing that was one of the reasons why I was so happy to not only get Tom on, but to interview him is, um, Tom is from somewhat of more of a past generation, right? And back in the day, just like we are nowadays looking for ways to get edges over our opponents with like solvers and GTO and all the, you know, that kind of those things. Back in the day, the other guys were looking for ways to get ahead of their opponents too. So what was the way that they were looking for more often than not? Tells, right?
It's so yeah.
Yeah, like
And
it obviously it wasn't computerized and it wasn't like glamorous as we see it now, but there's a lot of truth in being saying like I'm across the table from you. There's a lot with respect to history and like how our bodies reacts in certain stressful situations. And that is the way that a lot of players were trying to get ahead back in the days.
Mhm.
And I think Tom kind of said it beautifully of the different stories. And I've heard 10 times that many from Tom with respect to uh the actual like tells and stories and different call, but we only had close to like a 15-minute conversation. But yeah, I could go all day listening to his stories about like the different hero calls and stuff that he made based on human reactions that, he witnessed in the moment.
It's awesome stuff because like you said, back in the day, we didn't have all these tools and the ability to get the answers like we do now. And, but it's not like players back in the day were just going about things blindly. They were optimizing and doing things the best they could based on what they had.
Sure.
And that stuff all had value. So, like, the guys who really cut their teeth in that era are like, have superpowers when it comes to those areas. So I feel like people really do themselves a disservice when they see, maybe like older player talk about hands and they just kind of eye roll it because they think everything is GTO.
I I
Yeah.
also I also think too there's something to be said about like even when you know the spots to bluff, right? And if did you watch the final table, the super high roller at all, the 100K mixed games one?
Not I've started the coverage, not the
Okay.
I saw bits of it.
Okay, so there's one of the biggest like hero calls ever you'll say at the end. But I'll save it for you so you can watch it. But
Is it the deuce to seven with
it
Texas Mike?
it is, yes.
It,
Yeah. So but there obviously the spot and it doesn't matter if you know the right frequency to bluff. Because Chris actually said this in the coverage, and I think this is something to take away. Yuri turns his hand into a bluff pre-flop and then shoves after the first draw. He's all in. And Chris says something to the effect of, if I'm Yuri right now, my heart's pounding 200 miles an hour. And, well, even if you still know the right places to bluff, you're still human. Your heart rate's probably going 160 miles an hour. You don't look comfortable a lot of times. Like, I mean, sure, a lot of these guys who have played like, years and years and years, they look like statues, and I totally get it. But a lot of the no limit tournaments you're playing and talking about, like, even if they know the right frequency to bluff, they still are nervous inside is all get up.
mm-hmm.
They're still like you can still if you look for the certain situations, they still don't look comfortable. Now again, like there's instances that are few and far between, but um I think when Chris said that with respect of like, yeah, his heart rate's probably my heart rate would be going 200 miles an hour. Well, yeah, if your heart rate's going 200 miles an hour, you look like you're going to pass out in some frequency. So like yeah, I mean like there's certain things that you can definitely look for with respect to those situations for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful game.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really good. Uh, okay, during the World Series, what is one of the things that you could change about yourself or about your player? Like, one thing that you would really like to see yourself work hard on to get better at.
One thing that's just a constant, I don't want to say struggle, but just like maintaining the focus.
Hmm.
Um, the one of the one of the biggest challenges, and I'm not sure it's something that can ever fully be solved, but like when you go from a bigger spot to a smaller spot, being able to play at a high level. Like if you just busted day two on a disappointing spot for a big pot worth a bunch of equity, and then there's another tournament starting, you might be going from playing, 2K, 4K to playing 50, 100, blind levels.
Yeah.
And you've still got, thoughts about your bust out from the last tournament in your head. And so yeah, that's an area where there's room for tremendous improvement, I feel like, for everyone. And I'm not sure that there's a perfect way to go about it. Like you said, we're humans, we're not robots. You can't really BS yourself that like, oh, I don't care, I'm past it. People try to do that and it doesn't help matters. If anything, it makes it worse. I think it's more valuable to be real with yourself about like, shit, man, I'm wounded. I'm in this tournament. Um, but I'm in this tournament like knowing that I'm wounded and might not be playing my A+ game. I'm okay with that. There's still value to be had here. I'm going to continue to process what just happened in the last one, and hopefully I can accumulate some chips in this one and be in a better mental state going forward in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's like fair. Yeah, it's just so tough when you go from like one to the next, especially if you make like a deep run. And I totally get that whole feeling of like starting over again, and it's just not fun.
Oof.
It's
You
not
see it in
fun.
sports all the time. Like if a team has a big rivalry game and then they play a team that they're supposed to, demolish the next game, they show up flat a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do see that in sports a lot. This is actually one for me. I wanted to ask you this because you know, you live in Vegas. You're a family man now. Like, how do you balance the family life of playing long duration during the series? Especially, again, like a lot of these tournaments start super early. You know, like
Yeah.
how do you balance that?
And that's a big difference with the summer. The 10 a.m. starts for the
Mhm.
for the big bet guys. That hour a day or 2 hours a day. It's a big difference, and it certainly accumulates and adds up on the toll on yourself throughout the summer. Um, as far as how I handle the balance and the family life, I'm incredibly blessed to have met my wife when we were in high school, and we've been together. We were together on and off for a while, and then moved out to Vegas together when we were probably like 23 years old or something. So I'm fortunate in that we've kind of just like grown into this together. People ask me all the time, like, how do you deal with the lifestyle relationship wise? And I'm like, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I'm lucky as hell that we've grown into it together.
Yeah.
And my wife's an amazing person. She's incredibly understanding, and she probably understands the poker life better than a lot of people. So I'm fortunate with regards to that. That said, it is still challenging. Um, and I would say just kind of like try to keep your awareness open to, um, you know, if you've been grinding for 3 or 4 straight days and have been neglecting what's going on at home, just take note of that, prioritize, facilitating some more connection on the home front, even if it's just like 20 or 30 minutes where you put the phone away and reconnect and just like go run around outside or have a coffee with your spouse or something like that. But make sure that you actually dedicate the time to do that. Don't be like answering emails and tweets while you sit there and have the coffee. Like
Yeah.
actually put it away. See if you can get your breath to like deepen again and find just some moments of connection where you can on the home front. And in my experience, that goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the reconnection part is super important. Now, if you just become a mixed game player, you can save 4 hours in your day and just start 4 hours later. So, if you become like this old mixed game, don't I won't tell that to your wife just so you can. But
Hey, I mentioned to somebody, I'm like, I'm so excited for this summer. I'm I've learned how to play a few more games. Now I'm gonna be able to keep the summer fresh, and I'm gonna just be walking around just a bundle of energy. Can't wait to get to the next one. They look at me, they're like, I thought the same thing. What's gonna end up happening is you're just gonna spend an extra 3 or 4 hours a day at the series. You're gonna play more hours than you ever have. Buckle up. So
yeah,
we're gonna find out.
yeah. All right. All right. We'll see it in some of those mixed tournaments, hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right. If a recreational player is coming out for the series and they just want to have a lot of fun, what advice would you give to them?
Do what you want.
That's
Like I
great.
was
I mean, honestly, that is a great answer. That is a great answer.
shout out Jason Sue. Um, no, absolutely. This is your trip. This is, you've probably been looking forward to this with your buddies. Um, like I was saying, that poker group think is a strong thing. And more often than not, you're gonna have a dumbass at your table that like is gonna act like a know-it-all, but he probably doesn't know that as much as he thinks he does. So, yeah, make a small list of people whose opinions you care about, and anyone else's doesn't make that cut. Come out here and do what you want. If you want to make non-GTO plays, if you want to be open limping and making plays off of that, do your thing. Yeah, do what you want.
Yeah. All right. All right. One thing, obviously you're going to get short in the tournament at one point. How do you stay mentally strong when that's going through your mind? Or like when you realize you're like under 10 big blinds or something like that. How do you not just punt it away? How do you stay mentally strong?
You got to be willing to win still. A lot of times when we go from like a great situation to a not so great one, that's tough, and people say, well, I just tell myself I just doubled up to this stack or something like that. Doesn't work. Like there's going to be pain that comes along with going from having a nice stack to being short stack. Some of the toughest times are like when you're at one of those tables where, there's people being jerks or it's just like an uncomfortable table. And then you get short a lot of times it's real easy to lose willingness to run that stack back up and still win the tournament. There's something to be said mentally for even if you don't feel good about the situation, that's human, that's normal, but the one thing you can control is to still be willing for things to turn back around. So I think there's a lot of power in just being honest with yourself and like whether you got to say it to yourself or whatever, just like stay willing to win that tournament because you see it all the time. Short stacks turn into big stacks that win tournaments all the time, and we've all got those chip in a chair stories. And you know what? Like tourneys are tough to win. You don't want to be burning opportunities, even if they're short stack opportunities, because you never know, which one's the lucky ticket.
Yeah, I think you actually said it quite beautifully when you said, don't give yourself the ability to like lose. You still want to give yourself the ability to win the tournament, and you still have the ability to win, but if you're just kind of giving up with a short stack, you're giving up that ability to still win the tournament, even if it's a small probabilistic chance of winning. Make sure that you still give yourself the best chance to do it. And I also
And
think like that kind of builds on itself too, right? Like once you do it once, then you can do it again and again and again and again. And sooner or later, it's going to turn into a magic ticket. So,
100%. And if there's another tournament that if you do bust, you're going to go play later. Well, if you just sit there all grumpy and unwilling to win that one, just waiting to bust, you're not in as good of a state to enter that next one as if you had like stayed open and willing to win that one and like continued to be real with yourself about what's going on. Um, and like even if you do bust, you're gonna be able to say like, you know what, I handled that pretty well, and I'm willing to win this one now.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Someone listening to this interview makes their first final table, first World Series of Poker final table. What advice do you have for them?
Keep things simple. Um, there's going to be a lot of big emotion. There's going to be a lot of thoughts going through your head. You're going to be getting reseated. You might be getting mic'd up. You might be filling out a form. You're going to be wanting to text buddies back home the link to the stream and stuff. If you got buddies that can help you do that stuff, be willing to let them help you, because you're going to want to focus on the game. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're not going to play perfect, but you got to have like that shooter's mentality. Even if you make a mistake, you got to be, ready to play the next hand. One tip that can kind of help reground you when you get into like a big spot and your thoughts start going, just like hold yourself accountable to verbalize what the action is at the table. So like, you might have big emotion, your mind's going a mile a minute. If the cutoff opens to 2.3x, just say cutoff 2.3x. And then if you defend the big blind, say, okay, single raise pot, 30 big blinds deep. Just something like that, just to hone your mind back in on the actual, ABCs of what's going on in the hand can be kind of like a nice anchor just to zone you back in, because there is all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a any way to kind of get yourself back to what you're used to is not necessarily the right word, but what you're familiar with. Because it's so easy, like when things you're in a situation you're not familiar with, is to basically like default. I think one of the best, my favorite quotes of all time is like, we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall back to the level of our training. And, in situations like that where you're not used to the final table, like, but get yourself back grounded as quickly as you possibly can. Because, even if you know what to do in certain situations, like the heat of the moment could easily just, go past you. Actually, one that I have for people is bring a hat. One of the or a hood or something, because one thing that you don't really expect is how bright the lights are at the final tables. When you're playing on like the outer tables, it's just nice and calm. And I remember the second time I made the final table, the 10K08. Uh, the first time it wasn't that bright. The second time they were streaming it, and I didn't have a hat with me, and I was wearing my hood. I wasn't planning on wearing my hood at the final table, but the lights were so bright that it was brutal. It was like borderline distracting. I would tell people to bring some sort of hat just in case that happens, because again, it's getting you out of your comfort zone. You're not used to having something just shining right in your face like that. And that threw me off for a little bit, because I mean, it was just unsettling almost. So yeah, like anything that can you go back to like the whole grounding aspect of it, I think is a very good tip.
And you're dealing with that. Also, the cards are typically different. The felt is typically different. The rail is higher because the rail camera feels into it.
Weird. It's super.
You feel like you're sitting, like standing at a bar.
Yeah.
So like I said, there's all kinds of stuff to get used to. Another tip that came to mind, it's a lot. There's going to be a lot going on inside you. Don't feel like you just got to stay stuck at the table. Get up, move around, go talk to your buddies on the rail, even if you don't have anything to say to them. Like move around, let all that stuff like flow a little bit. I think is a great tip alongside with focusing on your breathing a little bit and making sure you're getting some deep breaths in there.
Yeah, actually, I go back a lot to like what Tom said, and one of the things he used to tell me is like, he would, if he could see in the periphery of his opponent's legs moving really fast, usually it's just a sign of like overexcitement or something along those lines. And again, if you're walking away from the final table, you can release some of that energy. You're not going to release it all. You're not going to be doing laps around the table for the most part, but at least you're like calming your body down in some way. So, all right, young man, let me throw some rapid fire at you, and we'll get you out of here. How about that?
All right.
All right. Favorite mix game?
Oh, wait.
That is very popular, and man, that is a good answer. I feel like 08 is just such a popular game, and I like that obviously because it's my best, but
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the similarities to Hold'em and that it's flop, turn, and river, if it's like a gateway drug to more cards and like split pot, or what it is, but like something about it.
Yeah, there's just so many different angles to what's going on. So more cards, more equities. Well, not more equities, but you got a high and a low
Mhm.
going on there. And so yeah. All right, favorite restaurant in Vegas. Everyone should try at least once.
Setabello Pizza.
Setabello Pizza. All right.
Mhm.
I will keep that in mind. If you could have one hand back in your poker career, what would it be?
I like 4 or 5 bet shoved like 7 tray of clubs on a money bubble once that was memorable. Right into kings. I convinced myself that the guy's 3 bet size was a tell and he was just trying to bully me. And there's like it was one of these huge field like 1500s early in my career. And we both had big stacks. I opened early position with like 7-3 of clubs, which is a whole nother discussion. But the guy like he goes to 3 bet me, he counts it out, and then he like added some chips to his stack and put it out there. And for whatever reason, I just like convinced myself that he was bluffing, and I 4 bet shoved it. He busts me. I'm the stone bubble. Everyone's like, and we're at the table in the back corner of the Amazon room, so there's still like I don't know dozens of tables going. So as I bust, I have to walk through this sea of people celebrating, giving each other high fives as they bag their chips, as I just absolutely torched a nice stack in a soft field tournament. That one comes to mind.
Yeah, I apologize for you not having 148 WSOP caches now. So, but at least
I deserve not to have that one.
that's fair. All right. If I made you emperor of the WSOP, what would you change if you can change one thing? Or if you could change multiple things for that matter?
Oh boy, location, my online product.
Yeah, well, that's a different story for a different day, but yeah. Hmm.
Hey man, if I'm emperor, let's change some stuff. I'd change my model to one that rewards the players with an equity share in the company, like if you want to be for the players, there's one place right now that's doing that is light years ahead of everyone else in my opinion.
Yeah. I get where you're going, and I mean that's why I play on there too. I think they're doing a lot of good things. So yeah, we're obviously talking about Phenom Poker, and what they're trying to do is great. If I had one thing, like they need tournaments on there, they need them now. Like obviously, poker in general, right now for the most part, unless you're watching like the nosebleed cash games on the streams, it's all tournament poker. So yes,
Yeah.
as soon
I
as it
think it's
gets,
going to be worth the wait, though, Kyle.
I,
I really do. Like, I've got a lot of faith in the developer team
I
and like seeing the layout and the lobbies and stuff. I think it's going to be worth the wait, and we may look back on this period as like having been a good thing.
yeah, the one thing I would love to see, and I've said this multiple times on my streams, is I would love to see kind of that like little golden age of, obviously the like the F-top series going on, and you have the Stars W Coops and Scoops still going on, but for the most part, obviously the US players have been restricted, but those times were just great. Like you could just hop in some random F-top tournament, and like I don't remember. I think the one I finished second in once was like Turbo Limit Hold'em. Just stuff that you would just never see anywhere else, but like these
Yeah.
things were just like fun and great, and it was just it was fun to play. So hopefully like they're able to bring something of that like back, and I think that would be awesome. But yeah, rewarding the players or something like that. I struggled a lot. I remember years ago. I'll kind of close this one out, but I remember going to the World Series, and I paid 275 for a banana, and I went to Walmart the next day and I bought 275 worth of bananas, and it was 11 bananas. And like, I mean, yeah, I just felt like the squeeze, like
Yeah.
if you listen to some of the old stories of like the World Series back in the day, and you know, uh, I felt like the way they've treated the players are a lot differently than they treat the players now. So I mean, I never got to play at the Horseshoe, downtown when they had it, but some of those stories were great. So
For
it,
sure. And you see it throughout the industry. The places that do take care of their players and listen to their players, they tend to grow. And the places that don't tend to struggle. You see
yep,
it. Look at Win Poker
yep.
here
I was
in
gonna go
Vegas.
exactly that example. Yep.
They've been doing the right thing for years now, and it's been fun to watch them slowly, climb the ranks.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think a lot of us back in the day would have loved to have seen them buy the World Series. Obviously, it didn't happen, but you know, um, who knows? In the future, they could just make their own thing. So
Yeah, or if the players collectively say, we don't, enough is enough. We're just because you have this brand, we have the right to say that doesn't mean as much to us as we do anymore. So you never know what could happen. Some places might make mistakes, other places do things better. Poker players are sharp, like one place starts doing things like really, really, really well and in a way that benefits the players and that they can be a part of. Um, it might take a little while to catch on, but as more and more players start to pick up on it, the momentum's a real thing and word gets around fast these days. And the poker community is like, as much as we beat up on each other for like fractions of big blinds and bets and stuff, when somebody, wrongs the community in a certain way, the community bands together. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at anything.
yeah, I guess I'll go a little bit on the periphery here, but do you actually think like if the Wynn basically opened up its convention center and basically said like, hey, we're gonna do it the right way and we're called like the Wynn series of poker or something like that, and they've made us like kind of a competing schedule. I mean, do you think like at some point over a course of a couple of years it could actually take over the World Series?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a tipping point for certain things, right? So you just keep doing things the right way and looking for opportunities. You never know what could catch fire.
Yeah.
I'm a poker player. I enjoy not having to make all those big money decisions.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's sharp business people in the poker world, and I think as players, when given the opportunity to support places that do things the right way,
Yeah.
if you've got a choice, that we get to vote with our wallets, and so you know if the businesses keep doing the right things and the players continue to support the ones who are, I think a lot of things can change.
Yeah. I agree. All right, last one here. Any question that I should ask you that I have not?
Huh. Um,
Anything
no.
you want to get off your
What
mind?
what no, I was thinking of what I could plug.
Oh, I'm sure there's an outlet right behind you. I'm sure you can find something.
It- No, no, nothing comes to mind. Just if you're interested in mixed games and want to watch a lifetime no limit hold'em player kind of dive into that world and try to progress, feel free to check me out. Basebaldy Poker on Twitch, Basebaldy Poker on YouTube. My X handle is at Basebaldy. I'm trying to do some more stuff in the creative expression realm and trying out some new things. And come check me out. And if you see me at the series, say what's up. Definitely a fan of the good people in the poker community, and would love to say hi.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Eric. And I look forward to you registering on time this summer for 2 months straight and adding some more gray hairs to that head of yours. So,
Sounds good. Let's make some final tables so it can be one of those magical summers.
yeah, for sure. I hope you do it in a mixed game this year.
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Yeah,
Like
that would
like 1,500 like dealer's choice, something like that. It'd be so fun.
it'd be hilarious if you called anything but no limit hold'em too. Like if you just found like something else to play, it's like, oh, I'm so sick of this game. Let's play something else.
We're gonna have fun with it. We're gonna do what we want. We're gonna feel it out and do what we want.
All right, young man. Well, thanks, and I'll see you on the tables online. So good luck, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, you got it, Eric. We'll talk soon. Bye.